Okay, so today we're doing this in a different format. I'm meeting Sam McIntyre from Tall Poppy Real Estate over Zoom because we're in different parts of the country, but I really didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak with him and share what he's got to say with you. Sam runs Tall Poppy Real Estate, and that started back in 2012.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and I just noticed earlier this week, Tall Poppy were awarded Agency of the Year by Rate My Agent, which I just think is amazing. So Sam, I really wanted to engage you and learn about, I understand that you were part of Tall Poppy in the early days and you're now the owner and it's going mental. So can you talk to us about the journey between then and now?
Yeah, it's come a long way. My journey was an interesting one. It's sort of like the stories that you hear from America where the cleaner becomes the CEO.
Yeah.
So I started at Tall Poppy on day one, so with the founder, and we were a team of 2, 3 or 4, and I became part of the company because I did the classic OE, came back, I was entrepreneurial and business minded, and I had a ton of business ideas, but my wife gave me a deadline. She said, so I was in banking before and I was a highly successful banker. And she said, if you don't figure out which way you want to go in the next 2 weeks, you've got to go back to the bank. And that was like the worst thing that could possibly happen. So on the 13th day, I think, out of 14, I stumbled across a job ad on Trade Me because I was desperate. And it was for a real estate agent. And it was asking for existing agents, 2 years licensed experience and a proven track record in selling real estate. And it was for a brand new company that hadn't started yet. And the company resonated with me values-wise and the offer to the consumer. And I had neither of those things, the 2 criteria, I had neither of those. And I messaged the guy and I said, hey, I've got neither of those, but I'm your guy and you've got to talk to me, like really confident. And I got a meeting the next day, which was day 14. And I sat there in a cafe and I used my how to win friends and influence people techniques. And I got the guy to hire me, which was awesome. So that was me starting on day one. Did my license really quickly and then became a real estate agent. So didn't know what I was doing. Was in a market on the Kapiti Coast, which is predominantly older people, quite conservative. House prices were low. Lots of competition, and I went out there and smashed it. No one knew who I was. No one knew who the company was. I was pretending to be a real thing. We had 2 agents and a website, and it was like, yeah, I promise you, we're a proper company. And I went out and probably sold more houses than anyone else in that market in my first year. Made a huge amount of money. Bought a franchise, started growing a franchise, bought a couple more either side of that area. Grew those, and my business became bigger than the main business, which allowed me some leverage to be able to buy into the main business. So I went from brand new at real estate to the top selling salesperson in about 9 months to business owner in about 9 months to multiple business owner in about 18 to owning the whole thing in about 2 years or 2.5 years. So it was a rapid rise. It was fun. It was a lot of hard work.
Yeah, no doubt.
Obviously, since that time to now, there's been a huge amount of work put in. Yeah, really interesting. At the start, it was sort of, we had an offer to the consumer. We had a website. We had a few forms, a little bit of a system, and not much more. And we sort of had to develop the whole thing as we went along.
Yeah, loads of learning in that time period, I imagine.
Good fun, hard work, but good fun.
Yeah, and all that hard work is clearly starting to pay off because I'm regularly seeing, new offices popping up right through the country. I'm seeing beautiful bright red New Zealand maps and coverage that you're getting.
We don't have offices, but we do have like franchise areas.
Yeah.
So I guess our model is a little bit different to the traditional model. And you won't see us up in Auckland, but we are pretty much all around most of the rest of the country. We're popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Our model's a bit different, and that probably touching on that. So we David, the founder, he looked at real estate. He was in real estate for 20 years. He was a high achiever, and he sort of looked at it with a blank piece of paper and said, you know, what would you do if you started again? If you didn't have the baggage, if you didn't know what you knew, if you were looking at it from a modern day perspective, how should it be? And he started from scratch, and most of what he started still exists, and then we built on top of that as well. So really interesting. It was around what works for the agent, what works for the seller, what works for the buyer, what is modern day real estate, well, what should it look like, how can we cut out all the unnecessary costs? It's very top heavy real estate. So what doesn't help you sell a house? What costs a whole lot of money that doesn't need to cost a whole lot of money? And cut that out so we could offer the house seller who's paying the bill a lower fee without compromising on anything else. So that was sort of the basis for it. So things like offices went, obviously, like in the old days, the office helped sell the house. People used to actually walk into those things and walk into one and then the other and then the other to look for properties and look in those window displays, and from 3 photos and a few bullet points, they'd jump in an agent's car and go and check out houses. And obviously now we're on these sort of things, this sort of technology, and we're in our beds at 9:30 at night, looking at every property and seeing pretty much all the information that we need. So why would a company pay for 192 high street offices, just the rent and the rates and the insurance and the fit out and all of that sort of stuff, let alone the people inside, the administrators, the finance, the marketing, the branch managers, all of those layers? Why would you pay for those when you could just have one, centralize everything, provide the same support? We're on Zoom today. We do training sessions for our whole company on Zoom. Everyone from everywhere can just Zoom in. We can have a live training session. People can ask questions. And hey, you know what? If they can't be in an office at 9:30 in the morning because it doesn't suit them, they can watch the Zoom later on tonight or tomorrow or whenever it suits them. It's just a more sort of modern, smarter way of being, I guess, instead of, hey, we've always done it this way.
Yeah, it sounds really lean.
It's very lean. It's very lean. I reckon our whole operation probably runs at the cost of maybe 1 or 2 offices in a main centre like Auckland.
That sounds like really effective. So have you always been so entrepreneurial?
I have. I had a chat with someone a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting. I haven't talked about my past in a long time.
Yeah.
But right from when I was a kid, I was entrepreneurial. It was definitely in me. So from, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old, I was running little businesses or figuring out how to have like little side hustles. And yeah, I always was. The person that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago said, do you think it's learned or do you think it's in you? And my experience for me only is it was definitely in me from right from the start.
Yeah, and it's showing. You guys are disrupting like crazy at the moment, and I'm really excited for you. It's been really fun to watch. And
that was my other thing. I was a disruptor. So if you ask my school teachers or I was disruptive, and now I can channel that disruption into something for good.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's so cool. I'll be really interested to keep watching. And I'm going to make sure that I leave links for Sam, for the Tall Poppy and for Sam's page, so that if you want to follow the journey, you can keep in touch as well. Because you know, as I just love that you know, the story, like you're saying, like the cleaner to the CEO scenario, where you've just got in there and it's all out of your own enthusiasm and drive that's put you where you are now, and it's really exciting to watch.
I think when you're passionate about something, then you just give it everything. And early on, like back in 2012, I had no commitments. I had a wife, but I had no children. So I could do the 90 hours a week every week for 18 months to really get it flying.
Yeah.
And that wasn't an issue for me. I just loved what I did, so it wasn't really work anyway.
Yeah.
You still have to love what you do.
Yeah. Have to find your why. You got to feel like it's not work.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Hey Sam, thank you so much for joining me over Zoom today and taking the time to chat to us.
Is that?
That's that. We're done.
That was
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks so much.